This is Rogers TV.
Hello and welcome to Next Week Today in St. Thomas-Elgin. I'm your host, Kate Burns-Gallagher, and we are here at the Elgin County Museum once again, and we are joined by Hilary Bates Neary, an author. Welcome to the show, Hilary.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a retired librarian, heritage researcher, historian, editor. I've been dabbling in many things over the course of my life.
So you're a storyteller.
Yes, very much so. I love stories. Yes.
Incredible. And where do you hail from?
I was born in Toronto, raised in Point Edward, and moved to London as a teenager. And except for a short period of time living in Newfoundland and briefly in England, I've lived in London ever since. So.
Oh, incredible. That's great. So in February, we celebrate Black History Month.
Yes.
And last episode, we talked to Mike about the rich history of this region and the Black history here.
Yes.
And you just recently won an award, let me get this correct, Donald Grant Creighton Award. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's an award given by the Ontario Historical Society, and this particular award recognizes historical biographies written within the past 2 years. And Donald Grant Creighton, after whom the award was written, or is named, was a very interesting historian of Canada and wrote one of the first really authoritative biographies of John Alexander Macdonald, our first Prime Minister. So that's why the award is named after him.
Incredible. Yeah. And congratulations on winning the award.
Thank you.
And what did you win the award for?
So I won the award for a book that I published in November 2022, and it's entitled A Black American Missionary in Canada, The Life and Letters of Lewis Champion Chambers. So it is a partial biography, but it also contains, apart from the biographical material, it contains almost 100 letters that he wrote from Canada West at that time to the Secretary of the American Missionary Association in New York. And that association was sponsoring his missionary work to blacks in this part of Canada. So it's a combination of biography and letters that he had written himself from about 1859 to 1867. So it's a short period of time, but it was a very busy period of time in terms of the Black history of Ontario.
Wonderful. And what inspired you to write the book?
Well, now that's a very good story in itself. So you maybe many of your viewers and listeners will remember the story of the Black Chapel in London that was threatened with demolition and was moved to next door to Beth Emanuel on Grey Street, and then quite recently, actually just after this book was published, was moved to the Fanshawe Pioneer Village and is now going to be part of its job to interpret the history of the Black history of this area. I got involved in that project back in the 2014 after the chapel was moved, and became part of the community effort to save the building and possibly restore it and make it into a center for the study of Black history in the area. Eventually, it made much more sense for that to go to the Fanshawe Pioneer Village. But when I was working on the history of, trying to understand more about the history of the building and the community in London that had worshipped there and fostered it, I tripped across Lewis Champion Chambers. And he had spent part of his ministry in London, and at the same time as being a minister at that particular church in that particular building, he was also doing missionary work throughout parts of southern Ontario. He came to St. Thomas, for instance. He came in and started, preached to people in St. Thomas and encouraged them to start a church. So he had a great deal of influence in the short period of time he was in Canada. And during that time, because he was being sponsored by the American Missionary Association, he had to write quarterly letters back to New York to tell them about his ministry and describe the struggles that his people were going through and the challenges. He was Black himself, and he had grown up in a situation of slavery, become a free man, started a family, moved them to Canada, farmed. I mean, he had a very varied life, but he was able to report about the struggles that the members of his church had in this part of the country. So it's a fascinating story. It's a fascinating story.
Absolutely incredible. And that there's also the St. Thomas connection, which is so
it was, and I wish I knew more about that. And I know that viewers who are based in this part of the province will want themselves to know more about the history of blacks in this part of the country. And I don't know enough, and there are people out there who can start researching this. But when he came to St. Thomas, he met with other blacks at the home of a man by the name of Bezaleel Stewart, who was a barber in St. Thomas. And eventually they rented the local grammar school to hold their services in, and he reports about that, and he reports about the gradual growth of the congregation. And at that point, you needed a critical mass of people willing to get involved in actually starting a church, renting land or renting a building or purchasing land or purchasing a building so that they had a place to worship. And he was at the ground floor of that kind of initiative. But it's a great connection. Yeah.
That's incredible. So what else do the letters cover?
Oh, they cover such a lot because he had a family, a growing family. So he talks about his family, not enough to satisfy me. I wanted to know far more about the family life. But he started out being based near Dresden. He was farming near Dresden and going out to small communities of blacks who had licenses to cut timber. The hardwood of Kent County was very marketable, and these men had leases to cut timber and sell it. So he was going out into the wilderness to meet with people and preach to them and start Sunday schools and temperance society. He was a keen proponent of temperance. Alcohol was a no-no for him. And then he moved to London and became the pastor at this particular church. And so when he was in London, he was in a much larger community. He was writing about the prejudice that his people met with, both in trying to go to white churches or even at school. Sometimes the efforts of the school board was to have segregated schools. So he was very opposed to that. He talked about the difficulty of farmers starting out and of men generally unable to find well-paying jobs. They were often relegated to much more, unsophisticated labor and therefore couldn't earn very much. So he wrote about the difficulties that his people had, but he was a farmer himself, so he liked to write about people who were doing well. And often the farmers that he knew, because they would often have come from farming backgrounds in the States, they had more skills and they had a better chance sometimes of making a good life for themselves. He was very proud of those people who were able to sustain themselves and could work for themselves and do well. So you heard both the sad story and the positive story from his letters.
Incredible. So if we're looking to find your book and learn more this Black History Month, where can we find it?
Well, you can certainly find it in the public libraries. The public libraries have copies. I know that in London, Oxford Books on Piccadilly has been carrying it. It's also available through the publisher, McGill Queen's University Press. If you go to their website, you can order a copy through them. So it certainly is available, but the public libraries certainly have copies, and that's always a good place. Always go to your public library first.
Wonderful. Well, that's a great plug for our libraries. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us today, Hilary.
You're welcome, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll be right back on Next Week Today in St. Thomas-Elgin.
Still doesn't register right in my head. I mean, the largest industrial investment in Canadian history is happening right here in St. Thomas, Ontario.
welcome back to Next Week Today in St. Thomas-Elgin. We're now joined by the newest chair of LSTAR, Kathy Amess. Welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So what is LSTAR?
LSTAR is the London and St. Thomas Association of Realtors.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And how many realtors are part of LSTAR?
Right now there's approximately 2,300. So that's London, St. Thomas and surrounding areas.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And is that a high number for the area, or is that?
Well, that's a higher number than we've had in years past, but the area is growing as well, so it needs more realtors.
Right. Yeah, we're growing rapidly.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And what does your role as chair entail?
So doing things like this, being a spokesperson for the organization, but we also, the board of directors and myself, decide on different things that directions that the association is going to take, things that we're going to do to support our membership, different initiatives that we're going to do in the public sector and things like that. So we're basically sort of the figurehead, and I guess we sort of steer the ship for our members.
Great. And now LSTAR does a lot of events and activities in the region. Can you talk about those?
We do, and we try to, that's one of the things that we try to promote, is we're trying to promote the realtors in our community. So we have different events that support different charitable initiatives. Last year, we actually had a golf tournament just down the street from here at St. Thomas Golf and Country Club, which is one of my favorites. So I was actually the chair of that committee. So that money went to Mission Services in London and to the Grace Cafe here in town. We raised about $53,000, or $52,651, I believe it was.
Wow.
So yeah, so we do things like that. We have baseball tournament, the same thing. We raise money to support different community initiatives. Also our gala, that is our Christmas party basically for our association, that raised, I want to say $23,000 this year, but don't quote me on that one. So different things like that in different communities to support different organizations.
Incredible. So it's an opportunity to raise the profile of realtors, but also give back to the community.
Yeah, because the community supports us, so we want to make sure that we're doing that as well.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And what is the role of the realtor, and why are they so important when you're dealing with real estate?
Well, for most people, buying or selling a property is the largest investment that you're ever going to make. So it's not something that you do every day, and it can be complicated. Over the years, it's become more complicated. There's more requirements on realtors for disclosures and things like that. And there's also a lot of pitfalls and different issues that come up that you might not be aware of if you're just going it on your own.
Mm-hmm. And it's all the paperwork and all the
There's
legalese.
a lot of paperwork. Yeah, I swear every year. When I first started selling real estate, I always say this because I've been in the business a long time, is we had one piece of paper, it was double-sided, there was about this much space to type your conditions or whatever on, and when I say type, I mean you typed it on a typewriter or you hand wrote it, and I swear like they add a new piece of paper every year. Computers are good for adding paper.
Right. Yeah. And do you find with realtor, is it still paper-based? Do you still have to have everything printed out in paper-based?
I would say, so most realtors wouldn't print stuff out anymore. Like certainly if that's what the client wants, then we do, and we would print it out and have them, it's called a wet signature. So you would sign it, with a pen. But most things are done now electronically using digital signature programs and things like that, which is secure, and it's also a lot faster, especially when we had that crazy market where there was so many multiple offers and you had to do things quickly. If you had to do that, like driving around getting wet signatures, it would have been extremely difficult using fax machines. We don't do that so much anymore.
Yeah.
So not a lot of paper, no.
Thank goodness.
Like literal paper. Yeah.
Now you mentioned the crazy market. What are things looking like for 2024 on the market?
So I wish I knew, and I wish I had a nickel for every time someone asked me that.
I bet.
It's hard to predict. Like the market changes, it's up and down so much. It does seem like it's a fairly stable market, and there's signs of improvement. I think that it's a good time to get into the market. The rates are a little bit higher than we've seen, but they are historically fairly low if you don't compare them to the last couple of years. And if you don't ever get into the market, you're never going to get started. So you need to take that jump and do that now.
Mm-hmm. And what are some things people should look for when they're looking to buy a house right now?
Well, first off, like you already said, you need to find yourself a good realtor, and that can either be like through referrals from people you know that have dealt with other realtors, or maybe someone's reputation in the community, or someone that you know. Interview a couple of people, make sure that you find somebody that you're comfortable with, somebody that listens to you and that you feel has your best interests at heart. And then once you've done that, you kind of need to be a little bit patient throughout the process. You're not necessarily going to find your dream house the first time you go out and look at properties. You might have to go out several times. It might take, a year. Sometimes it takes 2 weeks. It really varies on like in each scenario. Mm-hmm. You should make a list of needs and wants, and you should be realistic about what a need is versus a want. So you might, want granite countertops, but you're certainly going to survive without them. Right. So, and then you need to be honest and prioritize those things when you're looking at properties, and make a decision to try to get the most things on your list that you can. And then, maybe your next home, you get some more of your wants on the list.
Right. And there's things you can change and things you can't, like location,
for
community.
Sure. Yeah, there's always that old saying, location, 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 but it is true. It is the one thing that you absolutely can't fix. Also, if something is important to you, like having a large lot or, a mature lot, that's something that is a little more challenging to change as well. Like you could maybe bring in large trees to make something a little more, mature, but you're not going to make a lot bigger. So if that's something that's a priority to you, then you should stick to that on your priority list and, buy a property accordingly.
Wonderful, great. So if people are looking for more information about LSTAR or looking to find a realtor, how do they do that?
So LSTAR's website is lstar.ca, so lstar.ca, pretty easy. There's lots of information on there about stats and all kinds of other things. But then you can reach out to your local realtor, ask some of your friends or family for referrals. If there's any other information that they need, there's lots of resources out there.
Great. Well, we thank you for your time, Kathy, and
You're
sharing
welcome.
some wonderful information.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Great. We'll be right back on Next Week Today in St. Thomas-Elgin.
On behalf of everyone here at Rogers TV, I want to take a second to say thank you to our volunteers, the ones that help keep us running here at the station. Whether it's the community producers that help book all of our shows, the hosts that sit in the chair and talk to everyone at home, or the camera operators behind the scenes, audio operators making sure you can hear what we are saying, thank you. You are the people that help keep us running. You're the ones that help us produce the content to keep the residents that watch us informed. You're the ones that help us tell the stories that matter. So thank you. Thank you for dedicating the free time that you have to us here at Rogers TV. Know that we appreciate every second that you give us, and we just want to take this time to say thank you.
And we're back on Next Week Today in St. Thomas-Elgin. We're joined by Christine Dustin and Abby Dale from Spikes Volleyball. Welcome to the show.
How are you? Thanks
Great.
for having us.
How are you both?
Good, good.
Great. So we have Spikes Volleyball, which is part of St. Thomas Express. Tell us a little bit about the organization.
Well, you're the manager. I think you can do that.
Spikes is our team name. We are part of a club organization, St. Thomas Express, so it's the local volleyball club in town. Mm-hmm. And every team gets a name throughout the season. So last year and this year we were St. Thomas Spikes, and we're a 15U girl team.
Oh, that's awesome. So St. Thomas Express is like the NHL, and then Spikes is like the Leafs.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so other teams are railway themed names as well?
Yeah, so the Express Club, a lot of the teams take on train-related names. So there's other teams, there's another 50U girls team called the Rockets. There's a team called the Locos, Golden Spikes, you name it. They've come up with some really unique names for the season. So,
cool.
Yeah, and they age from 12U, I believe, to 18U.
Oh, cool. So 12U, is it under 12?
12 and under,
And
yeah.
then 15U is 15 and under.
Correct. Yeah.
Great. And where do you play out of?
We play out of June Rose Public School, but it'll vary. We rent public schools or the Joe Thornton, but yeah.
Okay. And do you play teams locally, or how far afield do you play teams from?
Locally, yes. We will use our practice time and invite other clubs and teams over. Or like during tournaments, you can have teams from Toronto or Niagara, Chatham.
Great. And how far do you travel for your tournaments?
The farthest we've traveled would probably be Toronto, maybe?
Yeah, Toronto area,
Yeah.
Windsor.
Yeah.
Within like the 2-hour mark usually.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a good fair distance. Yeah. And how many people are on your team?
12.
12. Great. And how long have you been? Is it a team that you've been playing with for a long time?
Yeah, last year was my first competitive year, and it's most of the same girls. We have, I think, three new girls that came onto our team, so.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
And coming up, you have a fundraiser to help support the team. Tell us a little bit
Yes.
about that.
We do it out of the Masonic Center, and it's a really fun night. It's trivia. We have baked goods that each teammate makes, candy cups, pizza, and then also some fun individual challenges that we have in between rounds too. So.
Oh, great. And so it's at the Masonic Center. When is it?
So it's Saturday, March 30th, and this is our second trivia night. We hosted one on January 20th, and it was a very fun night. We had 15 teams come out. Teams consist of 8 people. So we just, I guess wanted to create a night where our team could have some team building for all of the players, and also have some enjoyment answering some trivia questions. So it's on Saturday, March 30th, and the doors open at 6 and trivia starts at 7. And this is one of our main fundraisers for the season, to allow the girls to be able to compete at provincials, which takes place in Ottawa this year. So it's quite a stretch for all these families to travel to Ottawa. The main portion of how these girls play throughout the season is tournament ball. So we do have exhibition games throughout the week sometimes, but a lot of their team rankings and standings are based on tournaments that they play through the Ontario Volleyball Association. So how we are ranked throughout the season, we get to go and compete in Ottawa at provincials for end of year ranks.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So the trivia night raises funds to get the team to provincials in Ottawa.
Yes. Yep.
Incredible. And the trivia night, you said March 30th.
Yep.
And how much, all of the fun details?
So they can enter a team by emailing us. We also have a Facebook page called 15U Spikes Volleyball. Our email address is spikesexpress@yahoo.com. They can register a team there, and it's $240 a team. There's 8 players, so $30 a person. And we have snacks that are provided. And I mean, I think there's a little bit of a stigma for people who think that they need to be a genius to attend a trivia night, but that's not the case at all. It just is an extremely fun night out to bring friends, even a girls' night, or challenge business owners to get their staff out for some team building as well, and get some promotion on the screen too. So it just is a really great way to get our community involved with what we're trying to do with volleyball.
Well, last Mom's Night, we were talking about wanting to go and try a trivia night. So this is perfect timing. What kind of trivia questions? Give us an example.
Do you have a couple
We
you
have
remember?
like general knowledge. We did do a volleyball round as well.
Yeah.
Like geography, flowers.
Various categories. We had an audio category that seemed to be pretty popular. So songs of the 80s, we gave them like a 5-second clip, and they kind of had to guess the title and the artist. So that was really entertaining to watch.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, can we call in a team member for the volleyball section is what I want to know.
Team members are not allowed to help.
They were given strict rules. Yeah.
Each team member had to take on a certain table in the room, but it was just to clean off any tables, collect answer sheets.
Yeah.
But no, we cannot help.
Fair enough, fair enough.
So we're really lucky to have some great players on this team and some parents that have helped out throughout the season too to put on these events. So I'm very proud of these young ladies on the Spikes team. They've been pretty inspirational this season. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Christine and Abby, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Make sure to sign up so we can get those girls off to Ottawa for provincials. We'll be right back on Next Week Today in St. Thomas-Elgin.
This March, the biggest talent competition in the country is going to get even bigger. Canada's Got Talent is back, and this season's winner is going to walk away with a life-changing grand prize of $1 million. The biggest prize in Canadian TV history, all thanks to Rogers. So expect $1 million talent every Tuesday. Canada's Got Talent, the $1 million season, premieres March 19th only on City TV and stream it on City TV Plus.
I was born and raised in Musqueam First Nation territory by my mother, who spoke Hunkaminam to me. As a child, I ceased using my mother tongue, as to use any language other than English was considered not being Canadian, so I was told. The old people came to me in a dream and reminded me of who I am and where I come from. I have reawakened. My roots are strong, and I'm no longer a silent speaker. My language tells me where I'm from. It defines me and guides me to teach others to learn and understand our culture and traditions. A gift for those in the present and the unborn generations. What was lost is found. What was asleep has awakened. My blood is here, and I am complete. I have returned home.
Thanks so much for all of our guests for joining us today, and to the Elgin County Museum for hosting us once again. And thank you to our viewers for joining in and watching us. Make sure to sign up for your trivia team or check out Hilary's book. And if you're looking to buy a house, contact your local realtor. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time on Next Week Today in St. Thomas-Elgin.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Who's going to jail today?
TV's biggest night is about to get even bigger. Law & Order Thursday now has an all-new lineup. Law & Order at 7.
It's now or never.
The all-new Law & Order Toronto Criminal Intent at 8.
Detective Graf Bateman.
Followed by SVU at 9.
We're doing everything that we can.
And then Organized Crime at 10.
One mistake and it's all over.
4 shows, one massive night.
That's some concrete evidence right there.
It begins Thursday, February 22nd on City TV.
This is a perfectly healthy child. What's on